Hey everybody, it's Jimmy. I'm shooting today this video from Winnipesaukee, New Hampshire. It's pretty cool. I am at Castle in the Clouds by Lake Winnipesaukee. Let me show you guys this. This is Castle in the Clouds, and that's Lake Winnipesaukee. Isn't it gorgeous? So if you ever come up here to New Hampshire, this is one place that you should definitely come and visit. But today's video we're talking about is what is better to live in, New Hampshire or Florida? And obviously I live in Florida now. I've lived there for years, but I lived in New Hampshire too, and there's pros and cons of each place. And one of the big pros about Florida is why I moved there is because of the weather, because I'm into fishing and I can fish all year round there. And over here in New Hampshire, it's a lot more difficult just because of the climate. So that's what we're talking about. So, and you could just not even say New Hampshire by itself. You could say a northern state compared to Florida, because pretty much a lot of it applies to the same thing. So think about it. New Hampshire doesn't have an income tax, but neither does Florida. But huge differences, really huge differences. But you can't, New Hampshire is beautiful. It really is. It has a lot of beautiful areas and stuff. So let's talk about it. In the meantime, if you like this kind of content, consider subscribing. It really does help out the channel and is greatly appreciated. So we're not at Castle in the Rock anymore. It was just way too crowded there to shoot the completion of the video. So now I'm back at the hotel in York, Maine, but I still want to talk about New Hampshire. And one of the big reasons why I left New Hampshire is because, like I was talking about before, it's the weather. I'm into fishing, so the fishing. But here's some things I want to go over. And everybody knows a lot of this stuff. Like Florida climate, year-round temps are 70s and 80s. Humid summers. We have hurricane season, all the common stuff, that the problems with Florida and everything. New Hampshire, on the other hand, you have to be really into snow and cold. Because one of the biggest reasons why I left New Hampshire was the weather. I'd rather, me personally, it be hot and humid than freezing cold and just rainy, dreary, you know, especially in the winter and everything. And the other big thing too about New Hampshire that really bothered me a lot was during the winter it got dark so early. So in the Tampa area it starts getting dark around 5:30, 6 o'clock, and that makes a really big difference, at least for me, because I lack vitamin D. And I couldn't figure it out until I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, you know what, you should get some sun lamps and everything so you get more vitamin D, because I always felt like sleeping or tired and I couldn't figure it out. It was just pretty much lack of sun. So when it comes to weather, New Hampshire, if you're into cold and skiing and that kind of weather, that's for you. If you're okay with the hot and humid, and I'm telling you, Florida does become brutally hot. So one of the big positives about New Hampshire when I lived here is strong sense of community. Like the town we lived in, Bow Lake and everything, it was just like you knew everybody. And even the town that Tanya grew up in, you know, it was a sense of community, and that was big. When we moved to Florida, at least where we moved to, that whole sense of community went right out the window. Yeah, we know our neighbors and stuff, but we really don't have that sense of community anymore. And that's one of the big things that we miss. It's a big deal to us. And we used to get together, people, you know, the neighborhood area, we used to get together, have fire pits, and we used to go over each other's houses and eat. Now, Florida is such a transient place that, yeah, you could become friends with somebody and get close to them, but chances are within 6 months to a year, they're moving or you're moving. But think about the population. Okay, Florida, when last I looked it up, was 23 million residents. New Hampshire, 1.4 million residents. What a big difference on that. Florida's economy, huge economy, 1.65 trillion. Top sectors in Florida obviously is tourism, healthcare, aerospace, big cities, Miami, Tampa, Orlando, which, plenty of jobs, plenty, at least I think there is. Florida is starting to go through a transition right now that the economy is getting a little tougher and not as many people are moving into Florida, but there's still a lot of people moving in there. New Hampshire, smaller economy, but higher per capita income. So last time I looked, it was 81,000 GDP per capita. So people in New Hampshire, on average, make more money than somebody in Florida, which makes sense. New Hampshire, a lot of tech, healthcare, and small-scale manufacturing. When I lived here too, it's like, yeah, I know a few people that were into manufacturing, and I found that New Hampshire had a really nice, good business startup community. It was easy to start a business in New Hampshire, but it's also very easy to start a business in Florida also. Unemployment in New Hampshire is, at last time I looked, was 3.6%. It was actually lower than Florida, but that keeps changing every week. But there's a really good job market in both areas, even now. But I really think that that's going to change pretty fast. Let's talk about education, okay? So I looked it up, re-verified this. This is just the information that I looked up. K through 12, New Hampshire schools often rank higher nationally in public education. Florida schools vary widely. Some districts are strong, others are underfunded. So basically, New Hampshire, in the sense, has better schooling than Florida. But again, we have millions of more people than New Hampshire has either. Child care, New Hampshire has some of the most expensive child care in the country. I don't know why, but that's what I looked up. Florida is significantly more affordable, which matters to young families. Yeah, if you need child care, that's really, really important. And New Hampshire is kind of expensive when it comes to that. So let's talk about higher education. Like in Florida, we have great public university, FSU, UF, New Hampshire, fewer state college options. So we definitely have more schooling in higher education in Florida. So let's talk about healthcare real quick. Okay, this is what I looked up in healthcare. Florida, lower healthcare coverage, high uninsured rate. Can be great for retirees who specialize in medical hubs, but not always for working families, which is true. For the senior population, I think the medical care, in my opinion, in Florida is pretty good. But I think that for families sometimes, not so much. Like if you need specialty, but in New Hampshire, coverage and access ranks high in health outcomes and service delivery. And it really does. Plus, in New Hampshire, you could be in Boston, which has some of the best hospitals around. So that's really convenient. Let's talk about recreation, okay? Florida, beaches, boating, golf, nightlife, theme parks. Flat terrain, great for beach lovers, but not hikers. Which is true. That's totally true. New Hampshire, mountain forest, skiing, hiking, lakes. Perfect for outdoorsy types of people like fresh air and fewer tourists. Obviously, Florida, we're loaded up with tourists. I'm in York, Maine. I don't know if you can see behind me, but the water's like 55 degrees and people are coming down from Canada and they're swimming in the water in the state of Maine. Right now the temperature of the water in Florida, where I'm from, I think it's like 84 last time I looked. So, yeah, if you're an outdoorsy person, other than New Hampshire's the place to be if you like hiking and all that stuff. But Florida, the big advantage in Florida is you could do outdoor stuff all year round. It doesn't just have to be during the warm months. Because come after Labor Day, like the winter months here in New Hampshire and Maine, it is freezing. You like when I lived here, because I lived in Maine and I lived in New Hampshire, and trust me, you're not going out. It's going to be dark, cloudy, and just too cold to do anything outside. Here's the problem with Florida. All right, and it's not the obvious problems. You know, it's hot, it's humid, you know, it's crowded, which it is. It's very hot and humid. The problem with Florida is property taxes are extremely high, but they're extremely high in New Hampshire too. Don't forget, in New Hampshire, they don't have a sales tax, and they don't have an income tax. So they get most of the taxes from property taxes. So expect to pay a lot of money in property taxes. But in Florida, we don't have an income tax, but we have a sales tax that's I consider high, property taxes that I consider high, and the other problem is insurance. Homeowners insurance, even car insurance. I mean, car insurance is so high in Florida that, you know, like if you're in New Hampshire here, if you say, hey, how much you paying a year for car insurance? And some people aren't even required to cover. I think you only need car insurance last time I looked, when I lived here, the only time you needed car insurance in New Hampshire was if you had a loan on the car. I don't know if that's changed, so check that out. But people say, yeah, it was $1,100, $1,200 a year. In Florida, it's so high that people say it's $400 or $500 a month. Some insurance for cars in Florida are more money than their actual car payment. It's ridiculous. And when it comes to homeowners insurance, so many deals, okay, die not because of the mortgage, not even because of the property taxes, because that you can determine. It's because of homeowners insurance. A lot of the canal waterfront homes, everything is like $1,000 a month. And I'm not kidding you, $12,000 a year. And who really wants to pay $12,000 a year to live in a home? So even the house that I want to do it in Hudson, Florida, I got a quote like $10,800, and then I figured my taxes are going to be another $10,000. So you're talking about $20,000 a year before I even move into the house, because I'm not going to homestead that house. So it's a big issue that a lot of people are just getting priced out of Florida because it's just way too expensive. The taxes and the insurance costs are just stupid in Florida. And because, you know, the hurricanes and everything, I mean, we go down that rabbit hole, but we're not going to. So at the end of the day, what is better, New Hampshire or Florida, or just say a northern state or Florida? It all depends on you. I'm into boating and I'm into fishing, and I don't want to be restricted. So I could boat and fish all year round. Some people like golfing and they want to golf all year round. So Florida is better. But some people, if you like the outdoors and you don't mind the cold, and you like being outside skiing, New Hampshire is better. So at the end of the day, my opinion is I'd rather be hot and sweaty than cold and being inside. So here's the question to you guys. What would you like better? Would you like to be in a cold state and do the outdoorsy kind of stuff? Or would you rather be in a warm state that, you know, it's at least the climate is a way that you could be outdoors all year round? I'm curious of what your opinions are. But anyways, that's today's video. Do me a favor, consider subscribing. And remember, if you need a real estate agent or a home inspector, just comment below, and my phone number is below. Put a link, and let me see what I can do. It could help you out. Thank you, and have a great day. And watch this video here. I picked it up for you. I think it's going to be here or here. I'm not quite sure, but check it out, and we'll talk to you in the next video. Thanks, and have a great day. Bye.